Doesn't seem to be. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right, everybody. Okay, let's get started. This is 11:33 p.m. Not too bad. And we are in August 15th, 2026, and 2,203 days since Richard, our son, at the Fort Bliss whistleblower soldier Richard Halliday, was forcibly removed from his barracks room. Yeah, his protection just happened to not show up that day because he was reporting on the trafficking and the fuel theft and the orchestration of the Walmart mass shooting. Even evidence indicates he was reporting that they were planning on the Walmart mass shooting before it even was a shot was fired. And his reports then were blocked, and he asked for a transfer that was denied, and a code red was issued. They forcibly removed him from his room and took him downstairs to the basement room, to the arms room, which is a secure and soundproof area. And they took his life. They took his life, and they then stole his body off of Fort Bliss and trafficked it to Mexico for disposal. And, how does that happen, right? How does that happen? Well, from the very beginning, there's been this strange common denominator that the people that were um, harassing us and involved in this case and misleading us and everything were either mortuary operations or tied to funeral homes and mortuary operations. So now we know that the prime suspect, Dallas Hart, Richard's platoon leader, who is the one that issued the code red with the blessing of the chain of command, um, with his cousin, Tavita Nusa, and of course, Tavita Nusa's brother, Major Solomona Nusa of mortuary operations. So, they absolutely had the network, the Mormon Mafia network. And those are not my words. Mormon Mafia is not my words. Those are the words of other victims that live to tell the tale, and also in court cases. So I'm just repeating what I think is a proper name for this group, the Mormon Mafia. Because it was, after all, a Mormon Mafia operative who infiltrated into the FBI office there in El Paso, that revealed the identity, leaked the identity of our son to the cartel. And of course, the cartel, that they had the means to steal Richard's body off of Fort Bliss. Also, even evidence indicates to take his organs, harvest his organs, and to take his body over the border and dispose of it. We believe that the evidence strongly, like, if you were a betting person, you would absolutely bet on it, that his body was taken to a place called Plenitude Narco Crematorium in Juarez, Mexico, for disposal. And so we are in the very vicious negotiations for the repatriation of our son's remains. A lot of things have happened. The timeline is very interesting and tells a tale. Always create, when you're in a situation like this, always create graphs and timelines and bullet points and an investigation, and record everything. Record everything, document everything. Do that from the very get go. We received some very good advice from the very get go and did that. And that has gotten us to where we are. Just absolutely creating timelines and charts, um, crime scene charts, right? Crime scene charts to tell us what happened. And those have revealed that um, something is really up to no good with the mortuary operations contracts and with the VA insurance claims, um, VA benefit claims, death certificates, and there's hard evidence and experience with all of that. I not at liberty to tell you everything going on behind the scenes since April 2024 when the Army um, declared Richard deceased. And then, of course, in January of 2024, 4 days after President Trump got into office the second time, um, redesignated or designated Richard in the line of duty. And then things happened like the raid of the Plenitude Crematorium, where they found over 400 bodies rotting in the most rat infested, disgusting, sacrilegious place with no air condition, no potable water. While they were advertising both in the United States and in Mexico for dignified burials, right? Dignified funerals. Um, this is absolutely connected to the purchase, group of purchase, absolutely connected to what is going on with the fuel theft. Uh, and you're like, what did you just say? Funeral fraud, tampered documents, tampered death certificates, tampered insurance claims, tampered humanitarian aid claims, um, tampered bodies, tampered bodies that were recycled. Um, uh, Families that were given fake ashes while their loved one's body was never transferred, never cremated, put in the hands of people up to no good to profit off of those dead bodies, be it selling them, harvesting organs, um, collecting insurance, uh, stealing identities. I cannot tell you how well, and everyone knows it already, don't they? They already know all the fraud. And I can absolutely corroborate what you already know, that the fraud is has to be stopped. It is absolutely spiraling us down into an abyss where there is just gnashing and crying, gnashing of teeth and crying, the dark abyss. That's where our society is going if we can't respect the body that is made in the image of God. It's always an attack on the body, on the person, because people that are satanic hate God. And this is very religious. This is very religious, very cultish, what they have done with people's bodies. And it has to stop because the identity of taking Social Security uh, numbers, just their estates. Remember Green, Michael Green, the fraudster that pretended to be the wife of a millionaire to take through the insurance and fraud documents, fraud insurance claims, and everything. His estate, to take over his estate. This person that uh, was supposed to be cremated and put to rest, and this funeral home. Um, this is all connected. Uh, same playbook. Same playbook. They absolutely have so many. Why is it that people that are involved in this whole funeral fraud thing have so many identities, right? Or business fronts or things like this, and are connected to the fuel theft. Because if they're going to be fraudsters when it comes to the most sacred things like the human body, made in the image of God, and abuse it and falsify documents, which um, these funeral homes are already being indicted and having to make plea deals and things like that. I don't understand why they're allowed to operate. They need to be shut down. And the people that did this fraud, why are they not in prison? Why are they not in prison? They should not be allowed to operate. And I'll tell you why, because I know that Purchase has purchase group of purchase, and absolutely they lead the way. They lead the way with their cemeteries, their crematoriums, their funeral homes, the 700 bed freezer storage or refrigeration storage for uh, remains. They lead the way. They're reaching to New Mexico, they're reaching to Texas, all along the border, and they're reaching to Mexico and to places that we probably don't even know. And why is it that they have a history that is very problematic already? A legal history that is very problematic, and that also shows cover up. And using illicit gains to reach into other things and to be, I mean, once a fraudster, I shouldn't say always a fraudster, but if you're being a fraudster and you're an unrepentant fraudster, you're a fraudster not only in the funeral business, but then also in the other dealings that you have. You know, you, your spots haven't changed. And this is um, what's happening, that this is all connected. Those that were in the funeral fraud, the ones that are part of this whole um, insurance, falsified documents, is also part of the trafficking, is part of the violations at the border, like CBP. Is there like a purchase that was a CBP officer? Yeah. Um, and, trying to control the narrative by false claims, false dignity. Oh, we're so good. Oh, we took half of those bodies. Oh, we're going to take those bodies and put them in our refrigerator because it's the evidence against the crimes. Um, and there is a paper trail, and there is a recorded trail. And why is this personal to us? Because we feel like they collected on Richard like 3 times for his VA benefits, for his humanitarian aid on the U.S. side, humanitarian aid on the Mexican side. And this could only be done by those that tamper with death certificates, that also have power to, or the license, or the, the sticker, or whatever, the approval, the authority to move bodies back and forth over that border. And that have connections with the cartels, because the cartels run the border. They run the highways. Remember how the Jensens paid the CJNG $45 million so that they can run their stolen fuel tanker trucks on the highway there? And then, of course, in the ports, put it on a boat or a ship. But they had to pay the CJNG, who were controlling the port, who was controlling the highway in that area. The very area that is also, and I've reported on it, participating with purchase, funeral home fraud, election tampering, in that valley there, right below Big Bend. But it's in El Paso. It's connected to El Paso. So it all goes back to, like I said, if they're going to be fraudsters when it comes to bodies, then they're going to be fraudsters when it comes to insurance, when it comes to humanitarian aid, when it comes to elections. They're going to be fraudsters, and they're going to be fraudsters um, when it comes to oil and charging people oil prices. They're exploiters, they're fraudsters, and they absolutely tamper with documents, like they would even tamper with a death certificate. And we have one such death certificate. Um, so our evidence is solid in order to say these things. And there's so much identity theft within that group, to protect the enormity of their power. Group of purchase is huge, y'all. And it has tentacles. And they're up to no good. So, and it's not just funeral home. It's not just oil theft. And of course, never forget that Bill Hicks was the general counsel, the attorney for purchase. Don't forget that connection. because everything's coming out because we're going to be, well, we are getting very, very close. Will it be before, because everything's political. We're patient. Everything's political. Will it be before the midterm elections or after that we really have some answers for you about the repatriation of our son's remains? I think believe it or not, it's political, which is also despicable, isn't it? But we have to like back up and look at the big picture of what they were doing. It was massive crime, massive fraud, massive infiltration. They were hurting so many people. And we've had arrest after arrest after arrest after arrest. And not only that, freezing money, freezing accounts. 175,000, was it 175,000 visas have been now withdrawn. No visas, y'all. Matter of fact, my husband was telling me that his reports were that at the border there were no lines because there's no visas anymore. There's no lines. So if you're there on the Juarez, El Paso um, entry areas, let me know if that's true. Because the cartel has to be, look, 500,000 children were trafficked between 2021 and 2023. And who knows how many suffered with the drug trafficking, also the misuse of the organ harvesting, the baby harvesting, the black market for the baby harvesting and the organ harvesting. And so when you look at the bigger picture and you know what's at stake, because with all of those illicit gains of all of those really criminal endeavors, um, there has to be money laundering. They have to clean the money. So then you have um, an unusual kind of investment in property into the market, into gambling, online gambling, other crimes, other exploitations come from just trying to clean the money. So the politics of this is very, very, very important. And the midterms are very important. Very important. And it's only been President Trump that has actually conducted a war on drugs, on the cartels. All that money for so many years on the war on drugs. And it was all a facade. But we feel it now that there is actually something being done. There's a change in the wind. And it's against the cartels, finally. They're being extradited. They're being stopped. Their accounts are being frozen. And how do we know that this is happening? Well, we know the arrests are reported by the FBI or in the media, but do we trust them? We don't trust them, right? So, how do we know that it's happening? Well, because of the people coming out that are in that area that have seen a change where they're not so afraid of retaliation now. People are not, either they're very, very brave, or there's been a huge change that has allowed people to come forward now. And they're coming out, I mean, en masse. And this is what tells us what's really going on behind the scenes. That people don't have the threats against them like they used to. So this is really good news. So we'll see what happens as we get closer to the midterms. We're very close. What is it? Um, Maybe a little more than 80 days away, 85 days away, something like that, to the midterms. But, everything is politics, everything is leverage because this is the war. Instead of a kinetic war, we have a political war. And if we have to choose, and I don't want to choose, but if we have to choose, I'd rather have a political war and resolve it through negotiations and um, uh, diplomatic discussions and agreements and all of that than to have a kinetic war. No, um, because we know that nobody wins that. And we want the sovereignty of our countries to come back. We want to live freely. We want justice. We want justice. We don't want all this finagling behind the scenes. Y'all, the evidence in the Walmart mass shooting case behind the scenes, you just wouldn't even believe it. You wouldn't even believe it. I can confirm to you tonight, that the Walmart mass shooting was planned. The Walmart mass shooting was not a lone wolf. It was planned. And the Mayellas were a part of it. And the military was also part of it. A mutinous military. Operatives. And that it was orchestrated to be a political weapon for a false narrative against President Trump, to push Beto O'Rourke forward in the Democrat primary, earn him some cash, which it did, and to absolutely attack President Trump with false garbage, which Heidi Bayrish did, didn't she? The day after, on August 4th, 2019, she's the one that was about the manifesto. Oh my gosh, it's the manifesto. It's all President Trump. But we're really the best fans of Beto O'Rourke. And you have 23 people dead and 22 injured. And those need to be investigated for what really happened there because the death certificates are botched. And I can confirm that too. So Delia Briones, the county clerk, has a lot of explaining to do. And Salvador Purchase Jr. has a lot of explaining to do because he handled those bodies. I wouldn't recommend cremation anytime soon for anybody who happens to pass away. I don't recommend it. You need to put in your, this is just my recommendation, put in your last will and testament that you do not want a cremation because look, Governor Abbott appointed Salvador Purchase Jr. to sit on the commission for Texas funeral homes. Like, he's like, if you have a complaint about a funeral home, who do you write? You write the Texas Commission for Funeral Homes. And I have a lot of complaints about Salvador Purchase and the way he runs his business. I'm supposed to complain to him. Yeah. So this is definitely a political battle. And it has nothing to do with blue or red because they've infiltrated, right? I mean, Bill Hicks was appointed by Greg Abbott. And now, we have to get past all that because we need to absolutely address the bigger picture. And that is the terroristic organizations, especially designated terroristic organizations that fund and control our politicians so that you think, oh my gosh, they're so despicable. They're so despicable. Yeah, because they're ran by these illicit gains from these terroristic organizations. So our real focus has to be on those terroristic organizations and, for absolutely turning off the spigot, freezing their money, making those arrests, and things will improve very quickly. And that's what it seems, especially down in near Hidalgo County. That's another county. I can't say it begins with an F. Where they are absolutely arresting officials for tampering with elections. So there's a lot going on right now, and I just hope that you understand what the bigger picture is. That's going to really um, give us results that we get our son's remains because people need to stop being so afraid, right? And So the cartel have to be dismantled because the cartel are vicious. The CJNG are vicious. The Juarez has been vicious with their La Linea, and the Sinaloa has been vicious. Look, they turn each other in. Look, the El Chapo turned in El Maya. And Veronica Escobar, and Beto O'Rourke, and Mario Raskin Ortiz. And then you have, of course, the rhinos. So I think we need to be on the side of U.S. sovereignty back, Mexican sovereignty back, and not so political party oriented, but more justice oriented, because it's this illicit gains that I'm sure wag the tail of our Supreme Court justices. It's this illicit gain of fraud, deception, identity theft to collect on Social Security or, you know, Richard's Bitcoin, his savings account, everything that we were, his credit cards, in the possession of fraudsters after his death. And then all the benefits, and then um, the whole death certificate issue is just reeks of fraud. It is fraud. The whole paperwork, um, when there's so much fraud and then you get caught and then you try to put it right, you have all of the dirty fingerprints of the fraud underneath what you're trying to do is right. So the evidence is still there. So this is really, we're very, very close, and it's really a miracle um, because this is a system that was designed to control the media. I mean, there's still so many false stories out there about Richard, and I hope that you comment on those false stories and say fake news, because his record is stellar. And if it wasn't, I would say it's not, but it is. It's totally stellar. And President Trump corroborated what we're telling you. And but the very people like Bob Moore, who's connected, shares an office with Arliano Caron. Okay, so you got Bob Moore, El Paso Matters, who's writing fake stories about Richard, sharing office space with the owner that had over 400 dead bodies in rat infested filth with no air condition, mushrooms growing, no potable water. 400 not just piled up, but thrown in there like trash, stuffed in an old hearse, showing signs of torture, in uniform. And still, like 135, they're saying, are still not identified, but then they don't add all of the um the extras are still at like 383 or 386 bodies. They're not saying that it's over 400. This is the individual that has Argo Oil and Gas that is sharing office space with Bob Moore, El Paso Matters for El Paso Community Foundation, which is the Woody Hunt, who's in a partnership with Paul Foster of the oil theft. It's there's you can't make this stuff up. And no wonder they want to uh, smear Richard's stellar record because he was whistleblowing on them. No wonder Bob Moore would try to manipulate with his group to try to trap Richard, and um, Richard came out stellar, even though he did his dirty work before Richard's life was taken. There's a trail of that too. He was involved before. He was part of the group that targeted Richard before. And that is documented hard evidence. And that is in connection with purchase, because it was Bob Moore with Bill Hicks, with John Briggs, with Justin Underwood that attacked duly elected DA, the first female Hispanic DA in El Paso history, over and over and over again, because she was investigating Richard's death. She was investigating the Walmart mass shooting. She was investigating the Walmart uh, fraudulent distribution of victims' funds over $12 million. They had lost Jaime Esparza because he was screened as of course, because he got from Greg Abbott appointed, or no, from Biden, sorry. Veronica Escobar got Biden to appoint Jaime Esparza to the AUSA position, whereas Bill Hicks got a recess appointment because he's the bottom of the barrel by Greg Abbott. So it was the same people covering up. And it was a cover up because explain Mayella. Right there in front of our face, explain Mayella. The Mayella Crucius family. Explain it. That's called cover up. That's called an orchestrated Walmart mass shooting. And that's just the tip of all the evidence. So when you see who was put in these positions, that they were planning the case before even a shot rang out, Sam Medrano and David Guadarrama, those judges talking with Joe Spencer. Hey, I'll take the case, but only if I get an open checkbook. I don't want a nickel and dime it, so to speak. I want an open checkbook. I want access to taxpayer funds. so that I can exploit it and exploit it and exploit it for this orchestrated mass shooting. That's what that conversation was all about. And it cost taxpayers millions. And Judge Sam Madrano and with David Guadarrama are they're just so corrupt. They need to absolutely face the harshest penalty that our law allows. Absolutely. And purchase is right in there. Group of purchase is right in there. Bill Hicks counseled purchase. Because you know why? Because purchase has a history of not doing things right. Not doing things right at all. And he's the one that Abbott appointed. There's something fishy there because his record excludes him from any appointment to a funeral commission. Yes, dirty journalists. Yeah. Well, because they want the black gold, they want the theft, you know. They have their heart has just gotten black hard. Larceny of the heart. Larceny of the heart. It just rules them. And they will falsify documents. And of course, at the highest levels, we saw that with what they did against President Trump. That's why we really need to side with President Trump because they falsified FBI, over 50 signatures or whatever. They falsified records. They falsified stories. They tried to take his life. And he's still working so hard. And I can tell you that because we don't trust anybody, right? We don't trust anybody, not the media, nobody. Um, but arrests are being made. And why do we know that? That the money is going away because there's no lines at the border anymore. Because people are coming forward now. They're not as afraid anymore. That's how we know. And lawsuits are being made. They're not only coming forward, but they're filing lawsuits. And we have, not the total results that I would like. I would like some of these funeral homes to be put out of business. There's no there's no forgiving someone for keeping bodies and handing fake ashes to their families with a fake funeral and then charging them for it and then allowing them to stay in that business. No, sorry. But there are things happening, and I posted them up. And, of course, we have Carlos Manuel Salas. We have the AG in Chihuahua they're so compromised, right? They're so compromised, but they're getting pressure because of the funding. So, and of course, turning off the whole gambling, money laundering at the Strait of Hormuz and, all of what's going on in Mexico and in South America. It's jaw-dropping, the change. So we're seeing it, and that's positive because the more people that come forward, this is how we're going to get our son's remains. We have some theories about our son's remains. Um, so we're not just ready to share those with you. We're waiting for some more information to come in. Is it possible to get our son's remains? We believe 80% chance. I'll give you a number like that. 80% chance. That's worth that's worth it to really work hard. So, and that's putting everything together on our crime board, on our timeline. Um, yeah, and other things behind the scenes that we know. You'd probably be shocked to hear it, but absolutely indicate that we have a very good chance of receiving our son's remains and bringing him home. Yeah, bringing him home. So thank you so much. Thank you, Rock Rivers. Um, yes, make news great again. We have to hold them accountable. Bob Moore, we've put in a cease and desist. I don't know how much they're paying for that Google story. It seems like so much money that they're doing. That's how big of a threat Richard is. He's just such a threat um, to them. Um, they're facing the highest penalty for what they did. So, yeah, it's very hard to. They have a lot of control over the media. And I'm thinking that the more that this money goes away, the tighter the money gets for them, the better the news will get. I think that that's how that'll work. So we'll see. President Trump always surprises, because he always has some other kind of idea. It's like these data centers. I I don't know. I don't know what if the narrative is what it really is, just my opinion out there. But there's well, I'll leave it at that because it's all about these data centers and these flock cameras. And, it's like, oh, just go ask Chihuahua. They've had them for years, right? They've had them for years with the Pegasus, um, software and getting into everybody's phone and taking pictures of their car, knowing their every move and then putting in a data center to memorize and organize and analyze to weaponize all this information. So, yeah, but I think there's something more that's happening. Okay. Um, at least I'm preparing for, um, to not be so shocked, right? Because they're always deceiving and giving us a false narrative. So, um, and it has to do with fuels, right? Be it helium, be it crude oil, be it LPG, whatever. Um, and and then of course the minerals. It's control of that, and where I learned that from? I learned that from this great South Korean movie called Jumong. If you ever have a chance to watch it, you have to read it, right? It's subtitled, but it really talks about how, uh, what's really happening is trying to control salt, right? Who has the power, the possession of the salt mines? Who has the possession of the blacksmith that can make this amazing metal, right? This amazing metal, right? And that won't crack, that won't, and it goes on and on. But it's such a great drama. It's such a great movie. It's pretty long, but watched it years and years ago. Jumong. And so that, so we know that if they want, control over that mountain, it's like, okay, what's in that mountain? Oh, silver. Silver's in that mountain. Okay. Quicksilver is in that mountain. Okay. You know, or some lithium, or, why are they in that country? That's such a poor country. Oh, it's because there's lithium there. Oh, it's because there's, helium, or there's crude oil, or, you know, something like that. So, um, there's always more to the narrative than, than what they tell us, you know. Um, in their little battles and that. So, uh, yeah, just to let you know, Richard did watch Jumong. He did watch Jumong. Um, anyway, and he wanted to be CID. So he was absolutely reporting what they were doing. Thank you, everyone. God bless you. And thank you for coming on. Sierra Blanca has a salt mine. Oh yeah, Israel is behind the flock cams. Yeah, Israel's behind the Pegasus software. That's an Israeli software. But I will say this about Israel because I've been there. Richard was there too. And I think that that's a diversion. Okay. I'm not saying that they're not up to good or whatever. I'm not saying that they're not up to no good. Of course, you know, but I think that's a diversion of the bigger fight that we have, because when we went to Israel, number one, um, the Christian area is it. It is it. It's it. It's just you go to the other areas, but when you go to the Christian area, it's not an ethnic area, right? It's people from all over the world, all races, all these languages, and we're singing the same hymn, but in different languages and different ways. We were having such a great time. That was in the Tomb Garden, right? They have these areas up for choirs and all of that, and then you go to any area in the Christian zones, I guess, sectors or whatever they call them there, and the money is being made through the Christians there, and so I think the attack on Israel, um, because I don't think Israel could survive without all the Christian tourism that comes in there, that wants to walk the walk of Christ, that wants to go to the Mount of Olives, that wants to go um, to the Sea of Galilee and sail the Sea of Galilee, and go up to Masada, and all the places that we were at, that were just crowded with Christians, enjoying the history there and spending a lot of money, a lot of money. And so it is, the churches there and all of that. And I think that this, this satanic cult that's behind this, because you can't call it anything else, people that are sacrilegious with the human body and trafficking 500,000 children and all the guns and the drugs and the this and the that, and then compromising our soldiers with young girls and filming it, and trying to get them high, trying to get them drunk, and then doing what they did to Richard. You know, you can't call it anything else. Then they really don't like the Christian areas, and they're huge. And the the land that Christ walked on, right? And um, yeah, so they want to attack it. I think it's a real diversion, and they try to make it ethnic or racist or whatever, just like they tried to do with the Walmart mass shooting. And of course, we know that with Southern Poverty Law Center now, that they were even paying to create the racists and everything, right? They were paying for it, directing it probably, and, so I think that the biggest task on hand is getting rid of the theft and the fraud, and putting the rule of law back in there so that the cartels cannot be cartels, right? That they won't have any choice. They will have to find something else to do, right? And the real evil ones need to face um, uh, the full power of the law, and yeah, um, and so that our fuel prices can be, low again. Because just think, if we get rid of all of this fuel theft, or really as much as we can, um, it's just going to be the golden age. So I think that Israel is a diversion. Absolutely. Not that not a problem, but that it's a diversion. We need to stick to what's really going on, and and what Richard was reporting on. And then and I think there's an 80% chance we can get Richard's remains back, which is really good news. So keep praying really hard to up that number. We want it to be at 100%, right? So really pray. So thank you so much.